Hey, it's me again. Today, what I wanted to talk about was actually the treatment of animals in Japan. And that is something I've been thinking a lot about lately, but it's an ongoing thing that I've been thinking about because I've had a lot of experiences here that I felt were kind of questionable in regards to that. And I'm going to preface by saying this that I've met a lot of people in Japan who genuinely care about animals and really put a lot of effort into treating animals correctly. And um, but the general society is not at where I would like it to be. This is not saying that the US is perfect or anything like that, but I feel like there are certain things that we are much more aware of in the US as a culture that have not quite permeated into Japan yet. To use as an example, the zoos here. Ueno Zoo is probably an example of a really good zoo in Japan where there is a lot of effort to make more of a natural environment for the animals, more like what they would experience in their either their natural environment and giving them the proper amount of space and things like that. But if you go to other zoos in Japan, especially really small ones, it's actually not very great, and there's too many animals in the same cages and they're too small, and it's kind of depressing. Uh, and my understanding is that this is what the US used to be like before the San Diego Zoo. Um, my understanding is that they are the ones that started really making an effort to treat the animals better. Anyway, in addition to zoos, there's a big phenomenon in Japan of animal cafes. And the first animal cafe I ever went to is a cat cafe in Kashiwa called Nekonote, which I thought did a really good job. The basic idea is it's a very small cafe and you pay by the hour to be in there. And I think I paid about 1,200 yen, about $12 to be in there. And you get one drink and you also get a bowl of chicken to feed the cats. And there was about 20 cats in this room. And there was lots of places for the cats to hide and jump up and get away from humans, and lots of comfy things for them to lie on, lots of toys, lots of couches, and it was very cozy and very chill and relaxed. And the cats were just mostly just sleeping around. And then when you got the chicken to give to them, they would all swarm you, and then you got to feed them the chicken. And then the rest of the time, they mostly just did their own thing. And if you were lucky, you could get a cat to fall asleep on your lap. And there was toys that you could play with, and if some of the cats are up for that, then you could play with the cats. Um, and there was a separate little room that they could get into where they could use the litter box. And the whole place was rather clean, considering that there was all these cats there. There was a slight smell of urine, but I think that really can't be helped in this situation. And they really were trying to make it a good environment for the cats and for the customers. Um, I then So that was a positive experience. But then I went to a rabbit cafe in Tokyo, and I really did not like that. The idea of that was that the rabbits lived in these very, very tiny cages that would be much smaller than what you would ever want to have a rabbit in. And then you got to pay by the half hour to have a rabbit in your lap. And so I did this, and I picked a rabbit from a cage, and I kind of just held her for a while, and she stayed in my lap, and I gave her some leaves, and uh, she was very sedate, didn't want to jump around, didn't want to really do anything, and I don't really know if that's normal rabbit behavior, but it didn't really seem like they ever had an opportunity to really stretch out their legs or exercise or anything like that, and I did not like it, and I would not go back to that. I went to an owl cafe in Tokyo that I liked. You had to make an appointment. I made a same day an appointment to go in there, and everyone goes in groups, and they restrict it to about 6 people at a time to go in, and there's about 10 owls in there. You go in and they give you a lecture about the owls, and they give you a lecture about how to treat the owls. And what ways you can touch them, what ways you can't. Some of them cannot be touched at all, and they'll tell you which ones. And also, the whole room was very, very dark, and they made quite an effort to keep out the outside light from getting in, because the owls would be, they are nocturnal, so they would not like the light. Last week, though, I went to a different owl cafe in the city that I live in, actually, and I did not like this cafe because, first of all, they did not make an effort to keep the light out, and they just let people come in at various different times. There was a maximum amount of people that they would let in, but it was far more than I felt really should be in there. There was also way more owls, and a lot of owls that did not seem like they were very happy, or they were being well treated, or even were appropriate for that climate. There was this one snowy owl that was panting the entire time because it was too hot in there. And I asked the clerk there about it, and he said, yeah, she's too hot. And I was just like, well, then why do you have her here? And there was just too many owls, and it was too bright, and it did not seem like a very good environment. And there was also not as much of an effort to be educating the people coming in. It was more of like, hey, we have owls. And I did not like it at all. It was really cool seeing the owls. I do like owls, and I got some pictures, but again, I would not go back to this cafe, and I would strongly actually tell people not to really go to this one. I would say if you're really interested, to go to the other one because they made a better effort. Now, what it ties into, though, is kind of something that I have seen in Japanese culture, where there are a lot of people who view animals not as creatures that do have minds and feelings and emotions and cares that need to be attended to, but as more ornaments or things for humans to enjoy. And that's what you see with pets in Japan a lot. There's a lot of people who spend thousands of dollars on breed dogs. I almost said name brand dogs, but that's kind of what it is. You know, your miniature schnauzer, your toy poodle, or things like that are cute. And most people, if they want a pet, will go to these pet stores and pay a ridiculous amount of money. And it seems like how it was in the U.S., I don't know, 15 years ago, before there was, well, I think even then there was still this effort in the U.S. to try to rescue an animal. And there's a lot of people in the U.S. that they will not get an animal from a pet store. They will get it from or animal rescue. And there's also awareness that there is this concept of like puppy mills, which from talking to people in Japan, they don't really realize that puppy mills are a thing. And so what's happened is that there are a lot of people who spend ridiculous amounts of money on these dogs that might have problems because of inbreeding and improper breeding. And then after a while, they realize it's too much of a problem, or too troublesome to take care of the animals, and then they'll abandon them, and that happens quite a lot. And then there's not these animal shelters that the animals can go to, that someone else can adopt them from. So it usually ends up the animals that get abandoned ended up getting euthanized. There is the animal control in cities in Japan, and they don't tend to keep animals. They tend to euthanize the animals that they capture pretty much right away. There are a few no-kill animal shelters in Japan, and from what I have seen, at least most of them are run by foreigners who came to Japan and then were wondering, where are the no-kill animal shelters? There aren't any, and then created their own because there was not that there. And then they've gotten people in Japan to volunteer and help with them, and and I've seen the shelters here, and I've seen the people that are working in trying to make the conditions better for animals, and especially with college students and young people are starting to realize that there is this issue. But as a society as a whole, the pet stores here with keeping the animals in the pet stores, and the animals that are on sale in the pet stores that are being sold for thousands of dollars, they're way too young to be away from their parents, but they're away from their parents, and they're on display. And in the U.S., we're starting to have more and more laws about when animals have to be taken away from being on display in stores, when they have to be given time to go to sleep, and because it's really stressful to have the customers coming by and looking at the animals and things like that. And in Japan, there are laws that, that they have to shut those displays down at about 7 p.m., but it's still not where I would like it to be at. Not that the U.S. is perfect in this respect, but that is something that really surprised me when I came here. There are a lot of people also, even the ones that maybe are making a really good effort to try to take good care of their pets, but they're having pets and maybe they shouldn't be. Apartments in Japan are much smaller than the US in general. Now, if you're in a rural area, you're more likely to have more space. So when I lived in Akita, there was a lot of people who had Akita dogs being from Akita, big surprise. And there was a lot of farms there, and the people on the farms often really did have the room where they could have a big Akita dog. However, what you have in more suburban, more urban areas is people who have apartments that would be much, much smaller than the U.S., trying to keep golden retrievers. And golden retrievers and chocolate labs and things like that are very popular here, and that are just way too big for this kind of environment because the dogs need somewhere to run. So the owners will take care of this by taking them on walks every day. However, even despite how many walks you can put the dog on, the dog still needs to be able to run. Dogs need a little bit of room to run every single day. And dog parks are not really that common in Japan. There's very few, and they tend to be expensive, and most people do not have access to them. There are parks, but you usually have to keep the dogs on leashes. So you have golden retrievers who their exercise is being walked for half an hour by their owners every day, but that's not really enough. And then they go back to these really cramped little apartments, and they maybe don't have access to the entire apartment either. So it's something that has really bothered me. Now, when people have miniature chihuahuas and things like that here, chihuahuas are not my favorite breed of dog, but at least they're more size appropriate. Or when people have cats do not need to go outside for exercise. But still, you have this. Now, I've noticed recently that there is a man who has a Corgi who lives somewhere near where my job is, and so he walks his Corgi every day, and they walk past the school several times when they're on their walk. Now, this Corgi seems to be fairly old, and his back two legs do not seem to work very well, and the man is trying to get through the walk as quickly as possible. So he's walking very quickly, and he has this harness that goes around the dog's stomach, a really wide band that goes around, and he's kind of holding the dog up, and the dog's trying to struggle and keep up with the pace of the walking while being held up and basically being dragged around, where the back two legs are really not doing much, and they're basically being dragged across the ground. And I get really angry and upset every time I see this, because it's clear that dog is really uncomfortable with this. And but I don't really think that there's anything that I can do about it. And that's I saw that again today, and that's one of the things that prompted me to do this video. But basically, what I wanted to do is sort of enlighten people a little bit on maybe what's behind some of these things that you see. I showed people pictures of going to the Owl Cafe, and there's a lot of people who thought, oh, that's so really, really cool. I'd like that. I'd like one of those. And I don't know if that's necessarily such a good thing. There is possibly a way to do it properly, a way that, you know, is educating people, that's taking good care of the owls, but that is not really what I've seen. Um, well, it's sort of what I saw in Tokyo. They were making more of an effort. But still, the owls were being treated as pets. It wasn't like a rescue thing. It was the owls are sold as pets. They're a thing you can have as a pet here in Japan. And I don't really know if they can really be pets. In the cafes that I've seen, both times the owls were on leashes and they could not fly. And I do not know if they ever got opportunities to fly. That was something that really bothered me in both cases. Both times, both of the buildings were really quite small, and so even if, say, there was really no way to have all of the owls playing at once, and the rooms themselves would not be big enough for an owl to really spread their wings, except for some of the smaller scopes owls. They did have a variety. The ones that were the great horned owls, though, they absolutely did not have the room. I think I pretty much said the stuff that I really wanted to say on this topic. I just wanted to sort of enlighten people into terms of what is going on when you see the animal cafes in Tokyo, or if you see pictures of that and think, oh, that's really cool. Well, actually, maybe it's not exactly what you think of it as. And also sort of talking a little bit about something about Japanese society that would probably not that is not really something that a foreigner would necessarily know about unless you've been here and seen it yourself. I hope it was interesting. Please leave comments or anything. And if you violently disagree with me, well, hey, we could debate about it. But anyway, have a good evening, and I look forward to seeing how people react to this.